Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We got a lot to talk about today. We got new head coaches and offensive coordinators. We've got our top 12 tight ends for the 2025 season. We got the fantasy cops, and we've got your emails at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. We love fantasy cops, so please send in any of your league disputes. Just put fantasy cops in the subject line, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Not a lot of league disputes in the offseason, but for Dynasty, there's always something cooking. Okay, guys, we got Ben Johnson being hired for the Bears. We got Josh McDaniels being hired as the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. Jacksonville might hire Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. So we got a lot going on here. But who is super pumped, super excited for Caleb Williams in year two?
I mean, I have him as a top 12 quarterback anyway, anticipating that the Bears would do the right thing and pair him with a smart offensive coordinator. I did not think they would pay up for Ben Johnson, but they did, and that is exciting. Are you interested in some Ben Johnson stats? Yes.
Are you going to be a Bears fan again? You bet.
Hell,
he's always been a Bears fan. He's always been a Bears fan.
I swear to God, I am not ever going to be a Bears fan again.
I don't think I've ever told the story, at least not in many years, about what Dave used to do Fridays before Bears game with two of our coworkers.
That was back when I was a Bears fan.
I don't know this.
I'll save it for the end of the show.
Hopefully you don't remember. 3 years as a play caller in Detroit, Ben Johnson. 5th in play success rate, 3rd in plays per game, 3rd in yards per play, 2nd in EPA per play, 1st in 3 and out rate. That's good. 1st in yards per drive, 1st in points per drive, 1st in points scored. This is it. He needs to improve the offensive line, but at least now a play designer and a play caller with huge attention to detail will use a lot of play action. It's going to be very good for Caleb Williams.
Slot receiver is going to be great for the Bears.
I hope so.
So the play action thing, yeah, I mean that's a big deal. He had one of the lowest play action rates in the NFL. Jared Goff had the highest play action rate in the NFL this year. I think he was something like 14th the first year under Ben Johnson, then 10th or 9th the next year, and 1st this year. But it is interesting. I mean, one thing Ben Johnson's teams haven't done much is pass. They have been on the run heavy side. Their pass rate out of 32 teams in 3 seasons in Detroit, 19th, 22nd, and 26th. I don't think anyone has any doubts about the creativity of Ben Johnson. I mean, he ran a play where they pretended to fumble the football and ended up being a touchdown.
And who was that against?
It was against Chicago, and I think I read that he did that because he saw a Green Bay Chicago play where Green Bay, I think, actually did fumble the snap or something, and it ended up being positive. So he faked it. I don't know, just crazy. He's very innovative, but it's not the same personnel. It's not the same type of team. So, Heath, are you as sold on Ben Johnson going to the Bears as Dave is?
I think there's a lot more mystery going in with the Bears because, what does he want to do at running back?
Mm-hmm.
Which of the wide receivers becomes the guy who's going to see 10 targets per game? Cole Kmet, we're going to talk about top 12 tight ends. Cole Kmet was not one of my top 12 tight ends when we sent back our lists on January 2nd. Should Cole Kmet now be a top 12 tight end? But yeah, I didn't have Caleb Williams ranked as a top 12 quarterback for next year. And I had Justin Herbert at QB 12. I'd put Caleb Williams in the top 12 now.
Also, we got to see if Keenan Allen's coming back because he was a big piece of this puzzle. He's a free agent. I think he was on pace for 136 targets and was actually a top 16 wide receiver in the second half of the year after they fired their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. I don't know if you want to talk just real quick about DJ Moore. DJ Moore. So we thought, with Rome Odunze being added, with Keenan Allen being added, in 2023, DJ Moore was a top 12 wide receiver. He was number 6 overall. He was number 9 per game in PPR. He had 136 targets. You figure, all right, targets are probably going to go down. Actually, the targets went up. He had 140 targets this year, even with the addition of those 2 receivers. He is now one of 7 wide receivers over the last 5 years to get 130 or more targets and not get 1,000 yards. DJ Moore had 966 yards on 140 targets. What a strange career he has had. Mm-hmm. After finishing as a top 12 wide receiver per game, he was wide receiver 27 per game in full PPR. There's just no predicting it with DJ Moore. Who's going to have him in the top 24 next season?
He'll be close. I mean, you know, again, seeing what happens with Keenan Allen's big. Seeing where, you know, Ben Johnson decides to line up DJ Moore is big. You know, I mean, I was reading some stuff about their draft evaluation on Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the fact that they decided to make him their slot receiver was a big part of what Amon-Ra St. Brown's success has been. And so does DJ Moore profile more as a slot receiver than, let's say, Rome Odunze does, who was, you know, used as a big slot at times last year. Obviously, Keenan Allen spent some time in the slot last year. They sort of moved those guys around, you know. So if they keep, you know, DJ Moore in more of that role of the Amon-Ra St. Brown role, I mean, obviously everyone's going to be so excited about him, you know. So I would be very surprised if he's not a top 24 receiver, or again, very close, you know. So we spent some time on Monday's show talking about, you know, like where Jamison Williams is going to be ranked. I forget what else we were looking at. I know I think Adam, you and I did this on Express. It was Khalil Shakir, Jamison Williams, and I forget who the third guy was that we were discussing. It was coming off of
Zay Flowers.
Oh, Zay Flowers, right? You know, so I think he's better than all three of those guys, for example. And you know, those guys were all, I think we were saying right around, at least for Williams and Flowers, like right around wide receiver, you know, top 30. So it'd be very surprising if DJ Moore's not regarded in that range, just based on this move and what his career has been. By the way, Liam Cohen has decided to stay in Jacksonville. I started to say in Tampa Bay, excuse me.
Oh,
he's
wow.
down the Jack. He's taken, according to Schefter, he's taken himself out of consideration for the Jacksonville job.
Wow, Jack.
He also got a big raise apparently from the Bucs.
Well, of course, yeah.
I do think like the DeAndre Swift one is really interesting because you mentioned it, Adam. This has been a very, very run heavy offense and lots of rushing touchdowns. And Ben Johnson and DeAndre Swift overlapped in Detroit by 1.5 years. And in that season, Jamal Williams got 262 carries and scored 17 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift saw 99 rush attempts and scored 5 in 14 games. So I just wonder if there's a new running back coming into town.
So you're not going to put DeAndre Swift in your top 24?
Well, I mean, if we get to the draft and there's not like significant competition added, I think you have to.
Yeah, but short of that, I think he's not going to be. And I'd be a little surprised if he was the main running back again in Chicago.
Really?
Yes.
Well, what's his contract stat? I mean, I would be surprised if he's not.
He got a pretty big contract last year. I don't know.
It's a coaching change, and the coach they just hired chose Jamal Williams over DeAndre Swift.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it could be great for Roschon. You know, I mean, if that's the case, because he's still on his rookie deal. But are they going to? They don't have a lot of draft picks.
That was 2022.
Yes, 2022. Swift was still in Detroit, and Ben Johnson was officially the OC then.
That was his third year. He was coming off a pretty good year. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry that year. Wow. Why didn't they give him more carry? I'm sure I was freaking out about that. I remember I hated that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He's going to be a Bear unless they want to have almost $9 million count against them, or $9 million in dead money. He's got 2 more years left on the contract. After this year, he might be gone.
But like Kareem Hunt could do what Jamal Williams did that year.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't have to go spend a lot of money to add between the tackles runner and put DeAndre Swift back into the role he was in Detroit when Ben Johnson was there.
All right, let's move on. I just want to give one more stat here. So I did a lot of digging on the Bears, and I wish we could spend a whole show on it, but we have a whole off season. But DJ Moore, just last thing on him, he has now been on a team that's finished in bottom 5 in gross passing yards per game 4 straight seasons. And he's never been on 6 straight seasons now. He's played the league 7 years. 6 straight seasons, his teams have thrown 20 or fewer touchdown passes.
Has he ever had the same quarterback and the same offensive coordinator in back-to-back years?
Good check.
It's a great question. He's really had some bad situations.
Like we had the Baker's worst year of his career. He had Darnold for a while.
Here's a fun trivia question that's impossible to get. So I said DJ Moore is one of 7 wide receivers over the last 5 years with 130 or more targets and fewer than 1,000 yards. One guy did it twice. Can you name the wide receiver who twice in the last 5 years has had 130 or more targets and fewer than 1,000 yards?
Deontay Johnson.
Hey, very good. Very good. Also, I think Wan'Dale Robinson may have just had the worst season in like wide receiver history. He had 140 targets and like not even 700 yards. Someone's going to have to look into that. All right. Jamey, what do you think about the Patriots bringing Josh McDaniels back in town as their offensive coordinator?
I mean, the success rate is pretty good when he's been in that role for that team. I don't think it can get worse for Drake May than it was last year. So I think this is an upgrade. He correct me if I'm wrong. He was the coordinator there for Mac Jones's rookie year, or no?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mac Jones had by far his best year with Josh McDaniels.
Right.
And then was it the Garoppolo year with Devontae Adams? Was that his year in Las Vegas?
Yes.
I think he's got a pretty good resume.
Well, not as a head coach, but yes, as a play caller. You know, some guys are just better off being in the second chair as opposed to being in the first chair, and you know that seems to be the career path for Josh McDaniels. So there's a good track record of him with this team. I think he'll have some success.
I meant Derek Carr. That's why Derek Carr with a pretty good year in 2022 with Josh McDaniels, not Garoppolo. Sorry, Jamey, go ahead.
So you know, hopefully he gets the best out of Drake May. This certainly is a plus for what this team needs. You know, so. Good leader at the top with Mike Vrabel, and now an offensive guy that's had some success with quarterbacks, and obviously with this franchise. So yeah, Drake May is going to be a top 15 quarterback for me too.
I think we should rank Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and Drake May now.
I would still go Nix, Williams, May.
I'll take Williams first.
The Nix over May still?
Yeah, for now. I'm just happy all three of these guys have like solid to good play callers, maybe great in the case of Bo Nix, working alongside them, and they all have a chance to be in offenses that will add talent to them.
Patriots
I don't think there's any reason to poo-poo any one of them.
The Patriots have by far the most cap space in the NFL, $120 million, according to Over the Cap. The Bears have the fifth most at $66 million. The Patriots actually, who's the other team? The Broncos. They're not bad either. They're like middle of the pack, $35 million. But the Patriots have almost $30 million more dollars in cap space available than any other team. So it's not a great free agent class. T. Higgins is the prize, but he could be a Patriot. There
was that rumor midseason that they were going to spend as whatever it takes to get T. Higgins.
Yeah. All right. And so the Jets reportedly are likely to hire
Adams to the Patriots.
Detroit defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn as their head coach, according to The Athletic. That's barring anything unforeseen. The Colts hired former Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. Two injury notes on one team for this weekend's games. I will not pick the Bills to beat the Chiefs if two of their starting defensive backs are out. So that's just me. But Taylor Rapp, their safeties day-to-day, and cornerback Christian Benford is in the concussion protocol. Denver not expected to re-sign Javonte Williams, according to the Denver Gazette. And Anthony Richardson is going to work with a man named Chris Hess. He's a biometric coach. And Schneier actually posted a video of Josh Allen talking about how much Chris Hess helped him become a much better quarterback just with his mechanics. So this could be very important. We won't know, but this could be very helpful for Anthony Richardson. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use that bonus code FANTASY, and you're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. You download the BetMGM app, you sign up, and use the bonus code FANTASY. All you have to do is deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. All right, let's take a break here and give our top 12 tight ends for 2025 after this. Yeah, welcome back. How you guys feeling today? How you guys doing? How we doing? How we living?
Good.
In living color.
Dave, you're not doing so great?
I'm fine.
It's a great day for Dave. It's Bears got Tim Johnson.
What are you guys watching these days? How you spending your off season? Any good new shows or movies?
Coach's film from college.
Oh, that works.
The show coach.
We're all super high on Cam Ward. I was listening to FFT Dynasty the other day. Heath had some guys on. Dude was like, "It's Cam Ward, not even close."
Yeah,
It is.
Well, okay. But I think we should put this into context because the same guys said that he would be the 4th or 5th best quarterback in last year's class. Nobody thinks that Cam Ward would have been a top 3 quarterback in last year's class.
No, 4.
He's a poverty number 1 QB overall in the class. It's the worst quarterback class since the Kenny Pickett year.
He'll be the number 1 pick. He's awesome, and
better than Pickett was when Pickett came out.
he's better than Nix. He's better than Penix. But I could definitely he's better than Drake May. He's just not as big as Drake.
Yeah, I've not talked to anyone yet who thinks I think a lot of people like him more than they liked Nix a year ago at this time. I've not talked to anybody who likes him more than Nix after we've seen Nix be a good NFL quarterback.
Talk to more people.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking to Adam Azer who believes that. And I'm sure Dan Schneider does.
I guess I'm impressed with Nix, but I don't know. I mean, Nix, gosh, he was so bad at points, but he really turned it around. I'm just wondering if it was like a Sean Payton thing. But Ward is more talented than Bo Nix, I would say. Dave, you've been watching some Cam Ward film, right?
Yeah, I mean, I watched him live all year, and there's very little to nitpick him on. So I think as long as he's got to have the same thing happen to him, what happened to Nix, where he lands in an offense where the scheme is easy for him, tailored for him. If I were the Titans, I'd start working on that right now.
Yeah. Well, Joe Lynn,
he's better than anything they have at quarterback.
Joe Lynn in our chat says Cam Ward will have his career ruined by my Titans, guaranteed. I don't really want him to go to the Titans. It doesn't sound fun, but you never know. All right, let's get into the tight ends here and listen to FFT Dynasty. It's a great time to learn about these prospects. Tight ends 1 and 2. In what order did you have those two guys? I know it's going to be the same guys, but Jamey, why don't you kick it off? Tight ends 1 and 2.
It would be Brock Bowers 1, Trey McBride 2.
Any disagreements? Anyone have McBride 1?
Nope.
So why was it an easy call for you guys?
Relatively.
Yeah, I think it gets more difficult depending on what the Raiders do at quarterback. It's possible that quarterback situation could be bad enough that it's like, and they're pretty close anyway. But it's Bowers then McBride, and they're much closer to each other than they are to anyone else.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's consensus, by the way, of the 6 people who sent the rankings in.
Everybody had Bowers 1, McBride 2.
Yes.
All right. I won't necessarily, unless you guys want to talk about it. I guess I was going to follow up with what's more convincing about Bowers than Laporta. So Laporta took a step back in his second year. Kyle Pitts took a step back in his second year. Why are we?
Laporta was just touchdowns. He did not have an elite season based on anything other than touchdowns as a rookie.
86 catches on 120 targets. Like, he didn't have as many targets. He had 120 targets in 17 games. Bowers had 153. But all right. I'm not going to dispute it. I guess at what point in the draft are you taking Brock Bowers?
I'd be very surprised if he's not a second-round pick at this point.
Toward the back of the second round is when I'd consider him.
Right
along that same line. Like, if I've got an late round 2, early round 3, these are all the same fantasy managers drafting in the same spots. I might chance it that McBride makes it back to me in round 3, and I might rather have McBride in round 3 than Bowers in round 2. In fact, I certainly would rather have that. I just have to make sure I lock that in. And then what's my plan if I miss on both? If I pass on Bowers, someone takes McBride before I get the chance to pick again in round 3, that's a risk that you're going to have to take.
I'd take them both in round 2.
Yeah, I would as well.
How close do you think these guys are to peak Kelsey?
Not.
I think if they were close to Pete Kelsey, we'd be talking about where we were drafting Kelsey, which was like 7th overall.
Well, that's okay.
I think
it's over 20 PPR.
A peak Kelsey season is within the range of possibilities, but it's not an expectation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for McBride, obviously it's touchdowns, and for Bowers, it's just becoming a more complete player in his second year. This is usually when you see a jump. It's hard to expect a big jump from him because he was so amazing in his rookie year. And for what it's worth, obviously, he's seen a lot of NFL. Pete Prisco said that Bowers is already the best pass catching tight end in the NFL. This was like about week 10 last year.
He's awesome. Okay, and by the way, can you guess which tight end led the NFL in green zone targets?
It wasn't McBride.
It was McBride.
It was McBride, and he had
Got
2
him.
touchdowns?
He had the 4th most end zone targets. He had the 3rd most red zone targets. He had the most green zone targets among tight ends, and yet he caught 2 touchdowns.
I wonder how many of those came in the final 3 weeks of the season when they were just trying to get him that touchdown.
Yeah, could be. All right, tight ends 3 and 4. Dave, who do you got?
I still have Kittle third. I know he'll turn 32 this coming season, but I feel like he can still be a touchdown scorer. Probably not the same type of target volume as we just saw this past year. But then again, Debo seems to be slowing down. We don't know what we're going to get with Brandon Ayuk. That offensive line should be fixed. I'm good with Kittle, and you're going to get him at a discount compared to the first 2 guys. And then there's a big gap for me. I'm really going to try and wait a lot longer on tight end. I think about how David Njoku is done with quarterbacks not named Deshaun Watson. I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to be the quarterback for the Browns next year. I will take the chance on Njoku, but I don't want to draft him in round 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. I'm going to wait. And if I can get him past that point, happy to take him.
Kittle and Njoku, that's 3 and 4 for you?
Yeah.
Heath?
The first thing, totally agree with Dave about it's almost like there's a top 2 that's in a tier, and then George Kittle at number 3 is in a tier, and then we get to the blob after that. But I will go Kittle 3, and then I'm still going to go Mark Andrews 4 for now.
Wow. Okay, Jamey?
Kittle is 3, Laporta is 4.
I like the emphasis on the T there in Laporta. Did I have Laporta? I had Kittle and then Laporta. I'm surprised that Dave and Heath do not have Laporta 4th.
He's 5th.
Yeah, I believe I think was more willing to believe in Mark Andrews as an elite tight end coming into this year. I had Laporta. I didn't draft any Laporta, and Andrews was better than Laporta this year. So I don't have any reason to believe that Laporta is going to be better than Andrews next year. Was it
close enough to maybe make you consider making the switch, Heath? Because in full PPR on a per game basis, it was 0.2 of a fantasy point difference.
I think that you can make the argument for Andrews, Laporta, Hawkinson, Kelsey if he returns, or David Njoku at tight end 4. I'm not saying that there's a clear difference between any of these guys. I just prefer Mark Andrews. And I think it's worth wondering if Sam Laporta's role in the offense changes at all, or if the offense is just not as good. I think there's going to be a lot of people predicting that the Lions are going to miss the playoffs next year.
Mark Andrews is still one of the best per target. There were 31 tight ends who had 50 or more targets this year. He ranked 6th, Mark Andrews, 6th in yards per route run, 3rd in yards per target behind George Kittle. George Kittle was number 1 in yards per target. Do you guys know who number 2 is? It's now my favorite sleeper tight end.
Number 2 in yards per target
among tight ends with 50.
Was it Isaiah Likely?
It was Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft averaged, this is insane. He averaged more than 9 yards after the catch per reception. He's the only tight end. I went back, I think 6 years to the last guy who came even close was Noah Fant, averaged 8.3 yak per catch in 2019, I believe. But 9.1 yak per catch. Unbelievable. And he averaged 7.5 yak per catch last year with a super, super low ADOT last year, Tucker Kraft. But I'm looking forward to talking about Tucker Kraft because Christian Watson, torn ACL, probably not going to be ready for the start of the season. But he's not top 4. All right, so everybody's got the same top 3, Bowers, McBride, George Kittle. Dave goes Njoku 4. Heath goes Andrews. Jamey and I have Sam Laporta. Tight ends.
Just for reference, since they're not here, Dan has Laporta 3, and Jacob has Laporta 3.
Okay, and let's go to tight ends 5 and 6. Heath, you can start.
And again, I think that these guys are all in a range. We could even extend it all the way to 8, but I have Laporta 5, Hawkinson 6. Kelsey would be 5 if he announces that he's coming back.
Okay, I ranked Kelsey. I think I have him.
I ranked him 7th because as of right now, we don't know.
Okay, so Heath has Sam Laporta 5, TJ Hawkinson 6. Jamey?
I have Andrews 5 and Njoku 6.
Dave?
You guys are crazy. Kelsey should be first in fantasy postseason leagues. No, Laporta's 5th for me, and then Kelsey is coming in at 6.
Okay, and I have Travis Kelsey 5 and Mark Andrews 6. Yeah. Kelsey, by the way, his first 3 games of the year, he had a combined 12 targets. And who was playing in those 3 games? Rashee Rice. So Kelsey, I don't know what the year would have looked like if Rashee Rice had not gotten injured. But 4 targets per game in the first 3 games of the season.
Would anybody be surprised if Kelsey retired and then changed his mind in November and came back to the Chiefs in November, ramped up, made the playoffs with Kansas City, and then went ham again next year?
No.
No, I guess not. All right, who should we talk about here? So Hawkinson, Njoku, Kelsey. These are names in here, obviously, along with Sam Laporta and Mark Andrews. Heath, you had Hawkinson 6.
Yeah, I'm mostly just like we've done with running backs in the past, not really holding the inefficiency or lack of touchdowns in his first year back from an ACL against TJ Hawkinson. He's still in the prime of his career, will be 28 years old. We've seen him produce a couple of 900-yard seasons. He's in an offense that I think is probably going to throw the ball a lot and score a bunch of points. So I like TJ Hawkinson.
We didn't talk about Njoku when Dave had him 4th. Jamey, you had him 6th, was it? You had Andrews and Njoku? Actually, I'll let Dave talk about Njoku here, why you had him 4th.
In 8 games where Watson was a DNP or left injured, Njoku averaged 16.2 PPR points per game. Last year, 5 games with Joe Flacco, 18.2 PPR points per game. That's a wonderful track record. As long as we like the Browns quarterback next year, I think Njoku is going to be someone who's going to continue to get a lot of targets, score a bunch of touchdowns, playing in a contract year. One of 3 tight ends that we've already talked about today that are entering a contract year next year. So they've got that added motivation. 29 years old, clearly a focal point of the offense. Question marks at running back. I am thrilled to get Njoku, and I think I get him late in the draft. Late-ish.
Njoku and Hawkinson
Late-ish.
Njoku and Hawkinson are pretty interesting because they're most likely both getting new quarterbacks. Like with the way Darnold finished, you assume that McCarthy's got a chance to be the guy there for the Vikings, and who knows who the Browns get and how much does that impact those 2 guys in particular when they're going to be young.
I hate tight end this upcoming year. God, it's horrible.
You'll change your tune.
Maybe it will actually be good then.
I will not.
Because you loved it coming into last year.
I did not love it coming into last year.
Everybody loved it coming into last year. It was the year of the tight end.
I said, you're kidding me, right?
No.
I said that I could, like, I was wrong, obviously, because Kate Otten and Jonnu Smith finished in the top 5. But I said I didn't see like a single tight end who was going to be undrafted that could be great this year. You know, like I have to get a top 8 tight end. I think I said that on every single show we did. I ended up taking a lot of Jake Ferguson because he was like the last guy that I could see being a reliable tight end. I hated tight end. I mean, I liked it more than this garbage, but I did not like it.
I don't know why this is garbage though.
Oh, this is horrible.
It always has been. It's the astronaut meme.
I don't know the astronaut meme.
Always was.
Okay. Let's go to tight. What are we on? 6 and 7 now. And I have Njoku here. I have Jonnu Smith. Sorry, not 6 and 7. 7 and 8. I have Jonnu Smith 7 and David Njoku 8. Jamey, who do you have 7 and 8?
Kelsey at 7 and Jonnu Smith at 8.
Dave.
I have Mark Andrews at 7, Jonnu Smith at 8.
Heath.
Kelsey at 7, Njoku at 8. Now, I might move Njoku up a little bit because when we did these, we didn't know that John Watson probably wasn't going to play this year. And so it is a little bit better for him. Probably. We'll see who their quarterback is.
What do we make of?
It could be Kirk Cousins. I don't know if that's going to make you super excited for Njoku. But if the guy has arm issues and velocity issues and mobility issues, he's going to want to get the ball out quick and take those shorter throws. That's the role Njoku's had in this offense for multiple seasons now, is the short area target guy.
Just going to look up real quick. I'm going to guess Jonnu Smith was tight end 2 after Tua came back. Maybe tight end 3. But what are we thinking about Jonnu Smith, who obviously finished strong, and he ended up as a tight end 4 per game?
I mean, clearly he was what this team was missing for that position since Mike McDaniel took the job. He clearly did what they needed him to do in the offensive scheme change of not wanting to have all these big plays and Tua getting the ball out of his hands quick, and he was fantastic in that regard. And then you have clearly the story that's worth keeping an eye on is Tyreek Hill going to be back in Miami. If Tyreek Hill is gone, he may be a top 5 tight end, just based on what he just did and depending on how they replace Tyreek. So there's a lot to love about his situation. But again, is it just a one-hit wonder type of deal? I do recall when they signed Mike McDaniel, he was so excited about Mike Gesicki because where he came from, in San Francisco was, he wanted to make whoever the tight end there was, George Kittle. And then they went and got Tyreek Hill, and clearly he changed things because why would you not feature Tyreek Hill instead of Mike Gesicki? Duh. So we'll see how this, plays itself out. But clearly Jonnu Smith had a great rapport with Tua and has an opportunity here to still be one of the, premier pass catchers in an offense that will feature him.
All right. So those are our top 8 tight ends. I'm wondering if we're about to get to Jonnu Smith and Heath's rankings. Go to tight ends 9 and 10. Heath, Jonnu Smith in here?
Yeah, I've got Dallas Goedert and Jonnu Smith. And my only concern with Jonnu Smith is that this was the first year that we've seen this from a Mike McDaniel offense, and this was by far the worst a Mike McDaniel offense has been. I would think you'd probably want to change things up again. I wouldn't think they'd want to do the same thing they did last year.
Yeah. I think more throws to Tyreek Hill and
like
Waddle.
Maybe we should bring back the big plays.
Yeah.
Or just keep Tua healthy.
Yeah. I mean, I do think you whenever you talk about that, I do think you kind of overlook the Skylar Thompson, whoever else they have.
Yeah. Well, I think after Tua came back, they were 4 points per game or 5 points per game worse than what they'd been the year before.
They were worse, no question. But they were like horrible as always without Tua. But all right, Dallas Goedert. That's pretty interesting at tight end 9, Heath.
Yeah, again, I don't want to draft these guys. I probably will draft a top 3 tight end this year. But Dallas Goedert's still very good. The Eagles offense is still very good. I think Dallas Goedert could absolutely have a season where I don't know what's shocking about Dallas Goedert as a top 10 tight end, actually. So
would you like to know?
You're the only one that has him ranked.
Yeah.
He's averaged at least 9.7 PPR points per game each of his last 4 seasons.
He was tight end 10 per game this year.
And obviously, you'll feel much better starting him when one of the other receivers in Philadelphia is out.
Yeah.
But I think that's a safe floor for him. You just look at him and you go, okay, over the course of the year, he'll average 10 fantasy points per game and be someone that maybe scores 5-6 times over the course of the year.
His best 2 games were without A.J. Brown.
I understand. Yes.
But, right.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah, but I mean, that's my thing is I just feel like there's no upside with Dallas Goedert. He's got to be getting – well, no, there's injury upside.
I think he's the tight end you go to when you don't like any other tight end or the upside of any other tight end left on the board.
Yeah. All right, so Goddard 9, Jonnu Smith 10 for Heath. Jamey, who'd you have at 9 and 10?
9, I have Ferguson, and 10, Hawkinson. But Hawkinson will move up.
And Dave?
Evan Ingram's at 9. He might change teams this offseason based on his contract, and then Tucker Kraft is at 10.
Wow. So nobody said Dalton Kincaid yet?
Nope.
No.
I thought I was going to be – that's where I was prepared to be the outlier, and I didn't need that preparation at all. Okay. Yeah.
All right. We got an Evan Ingram in here. We got a Ferguson in here. We got a Tucker Kraft in here. These are tight ends 9 and 10. 9 and 10 for me are Evan Ingram and TJ Hawkinson. Is that what you had, Jamey?
No, I have Ferguson and Hawkinson.
Ferguson. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Dave had Ingram and Kraft. Yeah, Ingram. Is there any upside in this group?
I mean,
Nope.
Hawkinson, I think so, but he sort of laid that out for you where he hasn't ranked. So clearly, there's a chance for him to be a top 5 guy.
We've crossed the bridge to Goddard land. These are all guys that are going to be in that fingers crossed 10 PPR point per game average range.
I do like Ferguson getting Prescott back, depending on who the coach is there.
What do you make of Ingram having such a worse season last year than he did the year before?
Trevor got hurt. Brian Thomas got there, and he got hurt.
I think you have to throw out the part of 2023 when he was the number one target getter in the offense. And if you do that, he averaged 11.5 PPR points per game on 7.6 targets per game in 12 games with Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. This is 2 seasons ago. So obviously things can change, but last year, just over the totality of the year, he averaged 9.9 in full PPR. He averaged 4.7 in non-PPR. So that just tells you how important the target share has to be for him to make him even like a top 20 guy in fantasy football. But he's hit anywhere from 9.9 to 11.5 each of his past 3 seasons when he's had company at wide receiver. So I try and I do not expect anything close to the end of 2023 with him. But if you're somebody who might get 7 targets per game, that might be enough for you to go back to Evan Ingram. And again, that's in the case that he stays in Jacksonville. If they cut him to save some money against the cap, he's on a new team, and then who the heck knows what his situation will be.
It was just a pretty clear, like 2023 was the clear outlier year.
Yeah, he has. I don't know what he finished as this year. Actually, I do know what he finished as this year. Evan Ingram. He was tight end. Where are you?
37?
No, higher.
14 per game in full PPR. I'm pretty sure he'd been a top 10 tight end per game in full PPR, like all but 1 year, maybe now all but 2 years of his career. It's not always pretty, but he usually ends up as a starting tight end. He did not this year, tight end 14. All right, we're actually going to take one break and come back and give you 11 and 12 in our tight end rankings. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Fantasy Cops and your emails at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Coming up for that, we'll finish off the top 12 tight ends. You guys have your list in front of you. Maybe you can just recap your top 10. Can we do that?
Sure.
All right. Go for it, Jamey.
It is Bowers, McBride, Kittle, Laporta, Andrews, Njoku, Kelsey, Jonnu Smith, Jake Ferguson, TJ Hawkinson.
And then you might as well just give me 11 and 12.
11 is Dalton Kincaid, yay. And 12 is Tucker Kraft. There will be one guy that I will probably change if the guy in front of him leaves as a free agent.
Baltimore?
No.
Who?
If Zach Ertz leaves as a free agent, I might get Ben Simmons in my top 12.
Okay. Heath, give me your top 12.
Yeah, Bowers, McBride, and Kittle, Andrews, Laporta, and Hawkinson, Kelsey, Njoku, Goddard, Jonnu, Ingram. I have Kincaid 12th currently, but I might have Cole Kmet ahead of him with Ben Johnson in Detroit.
Okay, so you have Ingram and Kincaid rounding out your top 12. Dave, who do you got?
I'm just going to list my anomalies compared to the other guys. I've got Njoku at 4. I've got Jonnu at 8. I've got Evan Ingram at 9. And then my last 2 are TJ Hawkinson, and Jamey wouldn't let us rank rookies, but Tyler Warren's going to be a top 12 tight end by the time we get to August. So since we can't rank him, I put Dalton Kincaid as a placeholder.
Okay. I have Bowers, McBride, Kittle, Laporta, Kelsey, Andrews. That's my top 6. Jonnu Smith, David Njoku. Njoku, by the way, has been a top 8 tight end per game in full PPR 3 straight seasons. Evan Ingram, 9. Hawkinson, 10. Kraft, 11. Jake Ferguson, 12. Jake Ferguson did finish as the number 24 tight end in fantasy per game without a single touchdown this year. All right. Anyway, those are our top 12s. Kraft. I got excited about him. I saw some of those metrics. Good after the catch 2 years in a row. Even when you compare him with guys with similar ADOTs, I mean, he's just crushing those guys. Second in yards per target, which among tight ends, whatever. I mean, obviously could be fluky, but I think there's a bump there when Christian Watson doesn't play. Even in the playoff game, he got 5 or 6 targets, which isn't bad on a bad day for Jordan Love. So, yeah, that was somebody that I came in a little bit more encouraged about.
You wonder if that offense changes a little bit after the season.
Wow.
When they reevaluate it. Not that it wasn't successful for them, but they didn't get to where they want to go. You also wonder, like, how much was Jordan Love playing hurt through those games? And does he come back at 100%, stay 100%, and they throw the ball a little bit more?
This is going to get you excited about Tucker Kraft. Matt LaFleur was talking him up in his season-ending wrap-up press conference. He said, quote, "I think that's on us to find him and feature him. When he gets the ball in his hands, you feel him. If there's an area we have to do a better job on, it's featuring the tight end." And when he was asked if Kraft had the potential to be George Kittle or Travis Kelce, LaFleur said 100%. I think you would expect any coach to say that about his tight end. But the fact that he's already lamenting not doing more with his tight end after the season that they just had gets me a little bit more interested in expecting at least an uptick in production and maybe touchdowns for Tucker Kraft.
I wonder if LaFleur is the new Sean Payton.
Meaning
hyping up his guys and then never doing
it. At some point, for me to get really excited about a Matt LaFleur pass catcher again, somebody in his offense is going to have to get 100 targets. Like, the guy just hates anybody getting more than 5 targets a game.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, I think it was 2 owners meetings ago, and he was Christian Watson's the next Devontae Adams. Jaden Reed is the next Devontae Adams. It's just he's a little hyperbole.
And just to be fair, the numbers are not good for Tucker Kraft without Christian Watson on the field. He actually was targeted more on a per route, but just targeted more with Watson on the field than off the field. But that's an interesting one because Watson's not a guy who plays 90% of the snaps or anything like that. I think you'd really have to just also look at the games that Watson missed, not just the snaps that he didn't play in the games when he was healthy. All right, let's move on here. Again, we have your emails at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com, and we're getting a visit from, where is it? There they are, the Fantasy Cops. All right, here we go. Fantasy Cops from John. I went to my dynasty. What happened? Did it fall? What? Oh, I thought
we have this feature.
Crap.
Where we're allowed to star comments that we want to make sure that we come back to later in the show.
Fantasy Cops will wait. We did have a good show, a good question. Sorry, we have a bad show now. We have a good question from Mr. Popinski. I think he wanted to know where we'd rank Isaiah Likely if Mark Andrews were not on the roster.
Hi.
Tight end 6.
Yeah.
I put Andrews, Laporta, Hawkinson, Kelsey, and Njoku all in the same tier, and he would definitely be in that tier. He might be as high as 4 or 5.
I don't want to give off Okonkwo vibes, but Adam, I sent you before the show where Likely ranked in terms of efficiency last year, and it's very high. Clearly an athletic ascending player who's not the typical tight end.
Yeah,
and if I might like him even if Andrews stays. Depends really on what's the makeup of the entire Ravens receiving core. If they do more with wide receivers, I'm not going to like Likely as much.
No, he's great. That would be a big opportunity for him. We also had some comments about the 2 rookies. I mean, Jamey mentioned Ben Sinnott, but the names brought up in the chat were Theo Johnson of the Giants, Jatavian Sanders of the Panthers. We'll throw Sinnott in there. Any other rookies that you guys think maybe could crack the top 12?
If Eric All comes back healthy from the ACL, he could be on that list as well.
I'm pretty excited about Sanders.
Yeah, it's actually pretty maybe promising class. I don't know how good those guys will end up being, but
how many rookies this year will overshadow last year's rookies? Because you've got Loveland from Michigan, you've got Warren from Penn State.
Oh, I love Warren.
Yeah,
who doesn't?
Yeah. He'll probably, I mean, I assume he'll be ranked higher than any of the year 2 guys.
Well, not Rock Bowers, probably.
Any of the ones.
I'm excited about sending it. I like what Zach Ertz has done, and he's free agent. So this is another offense that's going to continue to get better, and we'll see what they do to add at their receiving core.
What segment should we do next?
Well, you didn't even do Fantasy Cops.
Let's do Fantasy Cops. Here we go. This one is from John. So John was in a dynasty league. John says, still in it. I went into my dynasty draft with a 2 to 3 year approach, and after tons of trades, I finished this past season with Drake May, Bo Nix, Bryce Young, Brian Thomas Jr., Lad McConkey, Brock Bowers, Roma Dunze, Rashee Rice, and Ken Walker. I have 4 of the top 6 rookie picks for 2025. I have 8 first-round picks total for 2025, 9 in 2026, and 6 in 2027. So he's set up for the future. A few teams who went all in on winning now ended up making some bad trades. 2 teams might not even be able to fill even a starting lineup next year unless they make some lopsided trades, and they traded away every one of their picks through 2027. Both owners ended up quitting the league last week, and the commissioner just said that he wants to fold the league and start a new one. There's no way I'm joining any more of his leagues, but am I wrong for wanting a full refund, including the first year's entry? I didn't sign up for a redraft league, and the strategy that myself and another manager took to prioritize youth and future draft picks is a valid strategy. The year 1 winner was already paid out, but I believe that it's wrong to advertise a dynasty league and give minimal effort in keeping it alive just to fold the league after the first year. Am I wrong for demanding all entry fees be refunded? It was a fairly large buy-in, and I've paid through 2027 due to multiple first-round picks being traded.
Oof. I don't think you're wrong for wanting that. You're not going to get it. And this is why I think a lot of people say when you start up a dynasty league, you should have people pay for the first 2 years at the startup draft. So if teams drop out, then you can give those teams to managers to try to rebuild for free. And it seems like if all those people had traded away their picks, they should have already paid those 26 and 27 entry fees. They shouldn't get those back if they're leaving the league.
So would you refund him the 2024 entry fee that he paid?
I would not. But I'd probably chop. I mean, if you're going to disband the league, then you almost have to chop up the money from the guys who quit and already paid those entry fees, and at least get some money back.
Well, what if they didn't pay those fees?
Well, he just said that if you traded your future picks, you had to pay your future entry fees.
Right. So
Yes.
If you traded them away.
Right. And he said they traded away all their future picks through 2026. So there got to be at least 2 years entry fees from a few teams.
So it sounds like at least 2, maybe 3 people want out of this league, right? The 2 that said that they're leaving and the commissioner.
Yeah.
I mean, you could always just take over being the commissioner and then find 2 other or 3 other people.
Yep. That's a good one too.
Yeah, but who's going to take over these teams that are horrible?
Well, if the entry fees are already paid for 2 years, then a lot of people.
You could do that. Could you also make it a 10-team league and, draft their?
Why would they pay and then want to leave? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Are we sure they paid?
Right. That's the question.
Because they could just be like, nah, I want out. And then, but you owe us money for future years. And they say, bite me.
All right. So, yeah, I like this. Get rid of the commissioner. You take over. Find new teams. They don't
Or give the commissioner a chance to still be in the league if he wants to. He just didn't want to run it, maybe.
Yeah. Commissioner didn't really think this through. But I can't.
Almost like, not telling people when the free agents were going to start.
Gonna drown you out with music. Thanks for your entry, John. Any more Fantasy Cops issues? Bring them on. fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Here's an email from Julio. I've been playing fantasy football for about 4 years, and each year my strategy has always been to focus on wide receivers and running backs in the first 8 to 9 rounds and finish my drafts with tight ends and quarterbacks. I usually have good depth at wide receiver and running back, but I usually have to stream tight ends and quarterbacks until I find a good option, and I stick with them. In the past years, it has usually led me to win and lose some leagues, but this year, in the 12 leagues that I played, I made the playoffs in 10. I made the finals in 8, but I lost all 8 finals games. When I looked at all of my opponents, I noticed a trend. The majority of the teams had a top-tier quarterback and a top-tier tight end, which made me rethink my strategy. Do you think I should change my strategy where I draft the top-tier tight ends and quarterbacks in the early rounds, or just stick with my original strategy? What do you think?
So you played in how many leagues?
He played in 12. He made 8 finals. And his strategy, in case anybody missed it, first 8 or 9 rounds, he drafts running backs and wide receivers. And then after that, he streams quarterbacks and tight ends. He's had a lot of success, I'd say, in the past, but he lost all of his 8 finals to teams that had top-tier tight ends and quarterbacks this year.
As someone who plays in a lot of leagues, I like to try different strategies for this reason. So sometimes you're going to have the success. You're going to have the success rate of the leagues the way you typically do it. And sometimes, you want to try different things to see what works. And so if you're going to play in 12 leagues again, okay, so go based on the numbers you just gave us. 8 of them, you had the same track record you have. Well, 4 leagues next year, try something different. Or 2 leagues, try something different. Just shake it up a little bit. And then maybe you find a different path to getting to where you want to go. So that's the fun of this game, is you don't have to necessarily do the same things. People ask all the time, you play in so many leagues, don't you have the same players in so many leagues? Well, yeah, a lot, because, there are guys that you like prior to the season, and you tend to gravitate toward those players. When waiver wire moves come up, you try to get those guys. I think it's always a good opportunity to try a little bit of a different approach, especially if you have so many stakes in the game, where you can, try some different strategies that may work for you.
I agree with the different strategy thought, but also what I really want to say is you had a spectacular year.
Yes.
You had 8 teams out of 12 make the finals. The bad thing about this game is that sometimes terrible, terrible luck strikes. And that's what happened. Like, you had a spectacular year. You should be really, really proud of how great your teams did. And you just had one bad week at the worst time. And just a slight word of caution. I had way too much James Cook and Mike Evans. So one of our last drafts that we did at the 2-3 turn, I took Patrick Mahomes and Rishi Rice and was out of the league by week 6. So, sometimes you should just stick with your guns.
Yeah, I like the strategy with the obvious move to pick up good value on draft day if someone slips at quarterback or tight end. There's absolutely nothing wrong with veering from the strategy to go and get one of those players. And then let's just say you do end up going with lots of running backs and wide receivers, you're streaming tight end, you're streaming quarterback, maybe work a little harder to try and swing a trade for one of the top quarterbacks. Just because you don't draft one doesn't mean you can't have one. You're just going to have to make a deal at some point in the season. I am in a bunch of leagues with pals who overvalue quarterbacks. And so I'm always one of the last guys to get a quarterback. I think I started my year with Matthew Stafford as my QB1. But by the end of the year, Jalen Hurts was my quarterback. I made the playoffs. I was bounced from the playoffs because of Jalen Hurts and what happened to him in the game where he got concussed. But that's always my plan B is, all right, so I don't get a guy on draft day. I'll either find a guy off the waiver wire, which is what this guy's been doing, or I'll make a trade for a quarterback along the way, consolidate my depth, keep the studs at the running back and receiver positions, and do the best I can in the playoffs. And Heath's right, man. You make the playoffs in 10 of 12 leagues, that's a successful season.
I wonder if the quarterbacks and tight ends that he lost to, and if any of those combinations were Jaden Daniels and Jonnu Smith. Quarterback drafted late, tight end picked up off waivers. They finished as 2 of the best players their position, but they weren't drafted that way.
Jonnu wasn't drafted at all.
All right. One more question here. Let's just get Heath on this if we can, because I want to save time for a Dave story from Jamey.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So basically the question is from Aaron. It's a dynasty question. It says the rookie running back class is supposed to be stacked at the high end, but also deep. I'm wondering which running backs from the 2023 and 2024 seasons would you consider holding on to for another year to see what happens? I have a few 3rd-round picks and just trying to debate whether I'm safer giving 2024 year 2 running backs another shot or drafting multiple 3rd-round running backs in this talented class. I would hate to miss out on a Kyron, Pollard, Mostert, Sproles, or Aaron Jones situation who were day 3 picks but broke out in year 2 or 3.
So the first group of must holds may not all not many of them are probably day 3 picks, but like you got to hold Trey Benson. You got to hold Jonathan Brooks, even through the ACL. You got to hold Braylon Allen. I'm holding Tyjae Spears. I'm holding Jalen Wright. I'm holding Audric Estime. I'm holding Blake Corum. I'm holding Marshawn Lloyd.
Why don't you just tell us who you're not going to hold?
Well, we're just now to the top 50 in my dynasty rankings at running back. So
I
So
thought
it's
Roshan
everybody,
under
which
23.
makes total sense.
I think Roshan and Kendre Miller and Kamani Vidal are 3 guys that kind of is where you get into the blurry zone, but I'm probably holding those guys over 3rd round picks, not 2nd.
Okay.
By the way, I'm going to write the story today. Kendre Miller was the number 2 most winningest player in CBSSports.com leagues.
Wow, that's funny. Who's
That's
number
because
1?
everybody picked him up at the end of the year.
Brian Thomas Jr. number 1.
No, the obvious was number 1.
Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
All right. Actually, I was going to guess my second guess was going to be T. Higgins because he had that 3 touchdown game. All right.
No, it's not playoffs. This is what they did to get you the playoffs, regular season.
They were on a
Oh.
team. They were on a roster that won the
Yep.
league. Not the starting lineup, but on the roster.
But if you had them, if they had big week 17s, then you won.
No, it's win percentage for the season.
Win percentage for the season. Okay.
Yes.
I see.
I'm taking Kendre Miller round 1 next year.
How the hell was Kendre Miller number 2?
Because if you had a good team, you were playing late in the year, you were making waiver wire moves, you probably picked him up with the chance of Alvin Kamara not coming back,
Yeah.
and he was on your roster on a winning team.
Okay. All right, Jamey. So, what did Dave do before Bears games?
So I don't know the year. Dave can attest to this when he stopped being a Bears fan. But
It's been at least 15 years.
It was definitely during the Rex Grossman Super Bowl run. It was definitely in when I started. So this was 2006, and probably went through. What'd you say? 2001.
I mean, I stopped rooting for the Bears when I started rooting for the Packers in their Super Bowl over the Steelers. That was Super Bowl 45. And so, like, it's been 10, 12, 15, somewhere in there. But
So
no question. I mean, I went to their Super Bowl against Indianapolis. That was Super Bowl 41. Diehard Bears fan then.
So it was Dave and 2 coworkers, and every Friday they would have a powwow at Dave's desk where they would discuss how they could win, what would happen, their fandom, and at the end they would all hands in and say bear down.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm getting images of Whoa Bundy.
It was very similar.
Oh, that's great. You know what? I'm not gonna make fun of that, Dave. I love that.
Oh, it's hysterical. It's so stupid now. Jamey loves one of those guys, by the way.
I love all those guys.
I don't even know who they are.
I don't know if you should name them.
Tell you off there.
Okay. All right, everybody, bear down. We will talk to you tomorrow. We take a look at.
Hey, Adam, is it proper when you go to somebody's wedding to give them a gift?
It is.
Oh, I agree. But somebody that we just talked about might not have done that to one of us at our wedding.
Yeah, I had a few people who didn't give me a gift. It's pretty messed up. All right. See you later. It's even, by the way, the right thing to do to get someone a wedding gift when you haven't been invited to their wedding, but you work with them.
Right.
Oh.
Definitely.
Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.